Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. Hope you guys are all enjoying this snowy Thursday morning. A lot happening in the world of sports. I was obviously joined by Brennan Roach last night. We had a good time. I'm bouncing around the NHL, talking about some hot topics. He's a big Maple Leaf fan, so obviously we covered them. I'm going to go into greater detail about the Montreal Canadiens firing Claude Julien today and my thoughts on that. I'm also going to get into video replay, which, as you know, if you've listened to this podcast before, I hate. And it's only my hatred's only growing this week with the incompetence of the NHL and what they've shown. Also, NHL is probably going to come last today. I'm going to touch on some other topics. Obviously, let's start the show with Tiger Woods. Tuesday, it comes up on my phone that Tiger's been in an accident. It's obviously a serious car accident Tuesday morning in Los Angeles. He was heading to play golf with Drew Brees after playing with David Spade and Dwayne Wade on Monday. And, my initial thought was, oh my God, did Tiger die? That you go to that when you see even, hearing the word jaws of life to get him out of the car. It's a device. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a life or death, but it made me worry, and I immediately sprung to the thought of Kobe Bryant. It was about 13 months ago to the day that Kobe and his daughter Gianna died in a tragic helicopter accident. And it's obviously I'm so happy he's okay. The first thing here, golf is completely secondary. That's irrelevant right now. I know I'm a sports guy, but it's all about health. I mean, he's got 2 kids, and he's obviously his son Charlie, who he played with just before Christmas at the event. I mean, that was so cool to see Tiger be a dad and see, look at his son when he made that eagle putt and just not be the Tiger, the silent assassin that we see wear red on Sundays. Just be a father and be, just Tiger, just be his dad to his children. But obviously, he's got surgery on his ankle, compound fracture with his leg. So when I think of those type of surgeries, I think of Alex Smith for the Washington football team, who, really almost lost his leg. If you haven't seen a documentary, the 30 for 30 on ESPN, I highly recommend you watch it. It's quite incredible, and how they go through the surgeries and everything. And I don't know if Tiger's going to be this serious, but I know with the compound fracture and you put things in there, just talking to, my mother who worked in healthcare, it's basically to prevent infection. And, if that infection, if not treated properly, can actually result in death, because you can get stuff in there. Your leg can go, you could possibly die. So it's still serious, but it's good to hear it's not a life-threatening thing for Tiger. But the main thing that I can think of is I just hope he can walk again. I hope he can play with his kids. I hope he can just do basic things that we all take for granted in life. Just go for a walk 18, even if he doesn't play it. But obviously, it's just the best thing is that Tiger's okay. He's an icon in sports. I think him and brands, when it comes to sports and brands, 2 I think will go on forever. And that's Tiger Woods with Nike, and that's obviously Michael Jordan in basketball. Michael Jordan hasn't played an NBA game since 1998. He played with the Wizards, but I don't even count that as Michael Jordan. He was out of shape, Michael Jordan, then, and he was the 02-03 seasons. Those are a wash. When you think of Michael Jordan, the assassin for the Chicago Bulls, like you've seen in The Last Dance, he hadn't played since 1998. And yet he still leads the NBA in shoe sales. And you talk about shoe sales around the world, people buy Jordans that don't play basketball. Golfers, I mean, I don't golf. I have a Nike red shirt because Tiger Woods wore one, and I'm not even a Tiger fan. I don't root for anybody in any sport. And it's those type things that you remember these athletes. They just have names. You hear the name Tiger. You hear Jordan. You know exactly who you're talking about. If you have a wife who's not a sports fan, she knows Tiger Woods. Yeah, it might be because of his scandals, but he's larger than life figure. Serena Williams, you hear the name Serena, you know exactly who you're talking about. And it's obviously his legacy will live forever, but if he never plays a round of professional golf again, that's fine. If he can walk, if he can do if he can play with his children, if he can do all of that, then it's gravy, because he's still, if not the greatest golfer, one of the greatest golfers in the history of the sport. You could say Jack Nicklaus, he's got 18 majors, Tiger is 15, whatever. But in his generation, there was never an athlete that I think was more feared than Tiger Woods. You got to a Sunday with a 3-stroke lead, you shit your pants because you saw Tiger was 3 strokes behind you, and you probably should have won the tournament, but you gave it away because it was Tiger Woods that was breathing down your neck. What other sport do you see that, where somebody just chokes because they think, oh my God, Tiger's behind me? And they change their mindset. They change how they approach the game. And, I just hope I'd love to see him come back on the course and him to have an Alex Smith type story where he has a long rehab and he gets back out there and he plays the game that he loves. That would be fantastic. But after these surgeries, just had a back surgery last month. He's had 5 of them in his career. The odds don't look good, but I wouldn't bet against Tiger Woods. I don't know how serious this surgery was. I mean, I know what it could lead to, but how bad shape is his leg and his ankle in? That's to be determined. But I just hope he can come back healthy. I mean, you see the world of sports, how everybody respect him. Justin Thomas, who's a very close friend, who's one of the best golfers in the world, teared up at his news conference. And I just hope he's okay. And obviously he's not going to die from this. That's that's the best news. But can he get back to a normal life? I hope so. I really do, because he's a figure that everybody knows, like I said, and I'd love to see him back on the course sometime soon. But prayers for Tiger. Hopefully he can get back out there. But if he doesn't, your career speaks for itself. You're a Hall of Famer. You're an icon, and nobody will forget you in the world of sports or in pop culture for that matter. So in saying that, it's a tough transition to pivot to this weekend's tournament, the WGC at Concession. But this is going to be the first event at Concession, and I just listening to Jerry Foltz from the Golf Channel. He said it's one of the toughest courses in the world. He said if they make it as tough as they can with the pins and the greens, this could really be a difficult track for a lot of players, even the best in the world. He even said if they make the track the way that they usually do, he could see a lot of guys shooting over par in this tournament, finishing with over par. And that includes the winner. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if they put this tournament as tough as it can. You see a 3 or 4 under win this tournament. I don't think they'll make it that difficult because they want it to be entertaining on TV. If you see bogey after bogey after bogey, a lot of people get sick of that. I like it every once in a while. Like usually at the US Open, you see a tough track and, a guy wins a tournament shooting 6 under. I don't mind that every once in a while. We saw last year with DeChambeau when he won. I think he shot 4 under for the tournament. Like that's tough. Yeah, it's a really tough track for the top golfers in the world not to play that better. But we'll see. This weekend should be great. It's got 48 of the top 50 players in the world competing. That's always great. And really, golf hasn't lost it. Last year, it came back in June. Daniel Berger won the first event, and obviously he won a couple weeks ago. But it's been a winner all through this pandemic. They've hardly had any positive tests. They haven't had to cancel any tournaments. The product's been fantastic. Dustin Johnson has, just solidified himself as number 1 in the world. We've seen some good players kind of emerging: Colin Morikawa, Daniel Berger, uh, you know, uh, a few other. Victor Hovland is another guy who I really like. It's We're seeing new faces, and then also the Justin Thomases, the John Rahms of the world stay competitive. But this is a big tournament. The Players is before the Masters in a month. But at this field, if you can go and win this one, that's a good get. That's a good one on your resume to say, well, I beat all these players to win this tournament. And if I had to handicap it, I'm kind of thinking like Patrick Cantlay's due for a win. He's played some great golf to start the year. Also, Tony Finau is a guy who's always right at the top of the leaderboard. He's a guy that could win. That's always close to winning. He finished second last week. But again, you can't rule out Dustin Johnson. But again, listening to Jerry Foltz from the Golf Channel, he's saying that this course is not all about hitting it long. So you don't need to be a bomber to win this one, because it can be a tough track if you can't keep your driver, can't keep the ball in the greens, you're gonna have a tough time. So I kind of think of Colin Morikawa too. He doesn't exactly bomb it off the tee, but he's good at keeping his ball in regulation and playing from there. So yeah, I think Cantlay, Morikawa, maybe Finau, just because maybe he's another guy that's just due for a win. He chokes away a lot of close events, but yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on that this weekend. Great field, and with NFL gone Sunday afternoon, it's hard to beat watching golf from about 2:00 till 7:30, and yeah, I mean it's hard to beat, but we'll see what happens this weekend. And hopefully we see, like I said, prayers to Tiger and the whole golf community. But in any sport, play goes on. You might lose an icon, something might happen, but the product still goes on. So hopefully we see a great field and a great tournament this weekend at Concession. Pivoting to baseball, baseball's going to be talked about more on the podcast as we get closer to the season. Do a preview show, things of that nature. But right now it's still February. We still got a month to go in spring training and a lot of games, and they're planning to start April 1st. That's the goal. Play 162. The NBA hasn't played a full season yet. Neither has obviously the NHL is playing 56. The NFL did play a full season. So baseball will be the second team sport to play a full 162 if they can get through it. I have my doubts that they will, but I think a big reason why they're going to be playing 162 is honestly fans. If you follow the news, Anthony Fauci, obviously the doctor, he was saying this week that he wouldn't be shocked to see ballparks, 40, 50% capacity. I think he even hinted at full capacity, which again, the US is getting 1.5 million vaccines a day. Canada, I think we get 0.5 vaccines a day, but they're getting in bulk. And something to remember, my dad pointed this out to me yesterday. Baseball stadiums don't sell out. So you can rearrange people easier. I mean, you think of the Trop in Tampa Bay. They're not selling out at the Trop. They're not selling out in Miami. They're not selling out in Kansas City. So Baltimore. But in these other ballparks that get good crowds, I wouldn't be shocked by July, when it's beautiful outside, that you see a good portion of fans in the stands, because people are going to be vaccinated and rapid testing, things of that nature. Everything's improving day by day. So that's a big reason for baseball to play, because they want that fan revenue, and tickets, hot dogs, concessions, what have you. So interesting to watch. Obviously the Blue Jays are an interesting spot, because like the Leafs are playing in Canada, but they're only playing in Canada because they're playing Canadian teams. The Raptors have been in Tampa Bay all year. They're going to be playing in Tampa Bay until their season is over. The Blue Jays are starting their season in Florida, in Dunedin. It's where that's their single A site. And but it's a world-class facility. That's where they go for spring training every year. So they got great, gyms, things of that nature. So that's the reason they're going there, not going to their affiliate in AAA Buffalo again. But, will Canada get enough vaccines? Will we improve enough to see the Blue Jays be able to make their way back north of the border? I have my doubts. But again, if you're down in Florida, maybe you get some people that you're going to get some revenue. So if I was the Blue Jays, Shapiro, Atkins, they're brass, MLSE, Rogers, you think, well, we could sell some tickets in Dunedin. We're not selling crap in Toronto because we're not allowed to have people in the building regardless. So, and, it's a long ways away throughout that whole year. The season only ends in baseball in October. But, I'm not optimistic into thinking that they can come up and then you're going to see other teams travel from the U.S. into Canada by October. I know it's a long ways away, but, I'm not a doc, I'm not in government, but it's the way they've progressed so far during this pandemic. It's been very cautious, and unless they make a seismic shift in their philosophy, I doubt we'll see the Blue Jays up in Canada until 2022. But the Blue Jays did make some headlines this week. Yesterday, I'd point out one of Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's been noted, he's worked really hard in the offseason, and he's actually said on the record he's lost 42 pounds. I have two different thoughts on this. Number one, good for you, Vladdy. It's not easy to lose that amount of weight. I went through it. It takes commitment, and you got to persevere. You got to stick with it. And so good for him. You want to be healthy. You want to be the best player you can be. So kudos to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. for sticking with that, and losing 42 pounds in an off season is no small feat. However, the fact that it kind of took 3 off seasons where they were telling him, Vlad, you need to, work on your nutrition. You need to do this better. He's a professional athlete. He should know better. It shouldn't have to be a mandate where they tell him, okay, Vlad, yeah, you really need to get in shape here. And he's like, well, whatever. I like the Dominican food and it's tough. Well, moderation, bro. So it's hard to applaud a professional athlete for getting in shape because it's half your job. That's half your play, of course. But if you come into camp out of shape, or you play the whole season last year out of shape, which he clearly did because his numbers were terrible. It was rumored he was playing last year at 285. And I don't think that's I buy that, because he looked heavy. He wants to play third base, and he lost all. If he was 285, then drop all that's a good amount, and he looks a lot healthier, and he's going to get a shot at starting at third base in spring training. Do I think he's a third baseman? No, I don't. To play third, you need to have really good instincts, and he's not a quick athlete. And he was playing first last year, and he was really struggling at when to read the ball, when it's his time to go pick it up, not the second baseman, when the pitcher's going to go grab the ball. So I think third's just a little experiment to say, okay, we'll try you here. You're a prospect of the future. We want to make you happy. But, first is his position. You want him to be healthy enough. You want to be fit enough for him to be your first baseman for the next 10 years. You don't want him to be a big poppy where he's just a DH. Obviously, David Ortiz had a fantastic career as a Hall of Famer, but he couldn't play first. Let's just be honest. He played first about 20 times a year when they needed to give the guy a break. He couldn't play a position. You don't want Vladdy at 21, 22 years old to be in that position already. That's a long grind of a career where you're just a DH. You can't even play a position. So good on him. I would play him, give him some reps at third, because they don't have a set third baseman right now. I think Kevin Biggio will likely start the year at third, but that's troublesome to me because they play Biggio everywhere. And I think if you play a guy everywhere, that means you're not really good at one position. They're set. They're going to play Bichette at short, which I'll get to in a minute. Vladdy at first. So you got Springer in center. I think you go with Lourdes Gurriel Jr. in left, and then you can put Teoscar Hernandez in right in your outfield. But Biggio, he's a good player. He's got to be in your lineup for sure, but where does he fit? I think Simeon will probably get some reps at third at points. But they still got some, I think there'll be some battles in camp for position. So that'll be interesting to see. But, again, good for Vladdy. Hopefully he can get his back going too, because it wasn't just about his defensive play last year. It was his power wasn't there. He wasn't the guy that we're used, that they thought they were going to get. So maybe a fitter, a more motivated, a guy who's focused on baseball, not focused on other things. He'll come into camp and he'll come into this season and really show people why he was such a highly touted prospect. Because to this point, it hasn't been there. If you're a Jays fan, and I don't think you'll disagree with me in saying Vladdy's been a bit of a disappointment. Is he still really young? Yes, but they're in a mode now where it's about winning. They got George Springer. They went out there and did that. They've got Steven Matz. They've got players on their roster where you could say, okay, we're not playing for tomorrow anymore. We're playing for right now. Their starting pitching is still a disaster to me, but they're a team that's not with their division. The Yankees are in flux. The Red Sox are not as good as the Blue Jays. The Orioles are the Orioles. They're a disaster. The Rays are still going to be a quality team. Obviously, they made the World Series last year, but Blake Snell's gone. They got Chris Archer to kind of replace him, which is not an adequate replacement. Can you make some noise in the AL East? I think they're third to start the year when it comes to their position, but who knows? It's about these younger guys taking positions and really owning them. Vladdy hasn't yet. Bo Bichette hasn't yet. But this is a huge year for both of them where they're going to be playing, hopefully, 162. Both of them, their first full year, and they can show what they got. And speaking of Bo Bichette, Bo Bichette's kind of the new face of the team. Vladdy was the prospect, but Bo, he plays shortstop. It's easy to be a shortstop and be the face of organization. You immediately think of Derek Jeter. Jeter was the Yankee. He is the New York Yankees in this generation. Obviously, you got Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, a lot of great Yankees over the years. But you think of in recent memory, it's Jeter. It's the captain. That's him and Mariano Rivera. But Bichette, he's got the hair, he's got the flair, he's got that swagger about him that you really think, okay, this kid could be something. And it was rumored in the offseason that they were trying to acquire a strong shortstop. And, one of them was Francisco Lindor, who was with the Indians. He ultimately got traded to the Mets, and he's there now. But just a rumor, Bichette clearly didn't like it. He wants to be the starting shortstop for the Blue Jays, and I don't blame him. That's where he was drafted. He feels he can play a position. Has he been great defensively so far in his career? No. Last year in the playoffs, he was a mess. Simple plays he was screwing up on, and you can't have that. The great shortstops in the game, they erase them. But can he improve? Of course. Derek Jeter had 56 errors in his first 2 years at short. He turned into a legend. He turned into, a fantastic player. So I think he can improve defensively. He needs to learn the shift, kind of learn defensive systems better and be a little bit more aware of what's happening on the field around him. But Bichette is clearly a guy that they need to do everything they can to help him. He's the face of the organization. Again, he's just that guy that you look at and you think, okay, this is our future right here. Bo Bichette, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now that Vladdy's getting healthy, he's getting in shape. You got Bo, who's hopefully working on his defense. He's still got that bat. That's good. You got Biggio. You got George Springer, where you can lead off your lineup. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is a consistent bat. Teoscar's he's still a good piece. You got a team here. You got a team for the first time in a while that I think you can look at and say, we're pretty good. We can maybe do what the teams in 2015 and 2016 did, except maybe, finish it off. But yeah, like I said, I'll get more into baseball, and it's not all gonna be about the Blue Jays on this podcast. As you know, I don't like to just focus on one team. We'll be talking about everybody. The Dodgers, what teams are doing, and this will be an interesting year for baseball because on paper there are a lot of bad teams. A couple that come to mind: Baltimore, Kansas City, Detroit, Seattle. The Indians might be a really bad team because they sold off. That whole AL Central is pretty bad. Texas, I don't think would be particularly that good this year. San Fran, Arizona. That's 8 there. I could go through more, but it'll be more about the top teams: the Dodgers, the Padres, again, the Yankees. Maybe the Blue Jays can get their nose in there. But it should be a fun season. I'm glad as of right now they're going to play 162. So the season will start Monday. So we'll start April 1st. So yeah, we'll be covering it here and to the point weekly. We'll be talking about it and, different things around the league, what's happening, what teams are up to. So, we'll be talking more baseball as we progress closer to the season. And obviously as the season gets going, we'll delve more into that, going forward. So in saying that, a sport that's, really, it's had a kind of a slow start against some COVID issues, a lot of blowouts early in the year. We're starting to see, the NBA pick up here. It's the All-Star game, which I can't wait to watch next weekend. I will not be covering that. Is getting going here. We're seeing some compelling things. Some injuries are kind of cropping up. Some teams are kind of playing better that we didn't really expect. And I did a preview show before the year with Billy Cole, and we kind of talked about teams we thought would be a surprise. A team I thought would be better, the Atlanta Hawks. They've struggled. They're 11th in the East. They're not really competitive, although they beat the Boston Celtics last night, which I'll get into. But the team I had as the sleeper, and I'll pat myself in the back here, is the Utah Jazz. And the Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA. The Utah Jazz, they don't have a superstar. I think Donovan Mitchell, he's close to being a superstar, but when you look at the likes of James Harden, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, he's not on their level. But Spiders, as they call him in Utah, he's a dynamic player. They still have Rudy Gobert, the Stifle Tower, who's playing center, one of the best defensive players in the NBA. They got Joe Ingles, who comes off the bench now, just a white guy built like a bag of milk, but he can shoot threes almost better than anybody. They shoot over 50% from three as a team. It's going to be hard to beat a team when they're doing that. Royce O'Neal's really good. They got Mike Conley, who's a great veteran. And they got Jordan Clarkson off the bench, who, last week scored 40 in just 29 minutes. So they have a great team. And last night was really a battle of two of the great teams in the NBA. Obviously, the Lakers heading to Utah to play the Jazz. And the Jazz got by them fairly, winning 114-89, fairly easily win. And it's the Lakers' fourth loss in a row, and it's starting to get concerning for me. They've lost Anthony Davis. They're 1-4 without him, and they've lost to some teams under 500. Saturday night they lose by a bucket to the Miami Heat. Then Monday they lose in overtime to the Washington Wizards, and then last night they obviously lose to a great team. But it's showing that the Lakers, even with LeBron, and he's playing a ton of minutes, he needs some help, and he needs another superstar. And Dennis Schroeder's been out too, who is a normal starter for them. But I look at LeBron, and he's going to play every minute he can. He never takes himself out of a game, which I have so much respect for. He likes to battle his way through a season. He said he doesn't get tired, which obviously is a farce. But he's just such a competitor. But in the long run, do I think this really matters? Not so much. Right now they're third in the West behind the Utah Jazz and the Clippers. They got Phoenix breathing down their neck, but they kind of caught a break with Phoenix blowing a lead to Charlotte last night and losing by 3. Portland's right there, and they caught another break with San Antonio losing last night to Oklahoma City on the last second shot. But if you look at their roster with AD out, the players LeBron's really relying on right now are Kyle Kuzma, who I think's been good since Davis has been out. He's looking to get an opportunity to be in the starting lineup. He's got it right now. I think he needs to be get 15 to 20 a game. You need to be the second scorer for this team because there's not really another guy who's going to take that. Wesley Matthews is a guy who's had a solid career, but he's a bench player now. And coming off the bench in LA, it just hasn't worked. We haven't seen it work for him. He hasn't caught a spark yet. And yeah, they may need an upgrade on him for sure. Marc Gasol, obviously the former Raptor, he's not what he used to be. He's an older guy. He's played a ton of basketball in the last couple of years. He's just not quick enough defensively. His shot isn't that great. And they don't play him big minutes anymore. He plays 12, 15 minutes a game. And then they bring in Montrezl Harrell, who's won the Sixth Man of the Year. But he's such a small defender, and he plays the center. And guys like Gobert are going to eat him alive because he's just so small. He can't defend these guys that are 7 feet tall. And so that concerns me. I think if they can find a center, maybe Hassan Whiteside would be an answer for me. Obviously, Andre Drummond is out there. Maybe they go after Blake Griffin, who I think will probably be bought out by Detroit sometime in the near future. So they do have some options when it comes to big men, but they need Davis back, point blank. They also need some more consistent play from, the likes of Contavious Caldwell-Pope, and Harrell needs to be better off the bench when it comes to scoring, providing that energy. And, Kyle Kuzma needs to find his role and kind of stick to it. It's been tough for him because he's been in and out of the starting lineup. So I think find a spot for him and kind of put him there and let him breathe. Let it just be there for him and see what he can do. But do I worry about the Lakers? Like I said, not really. But the Western Conference, it's top heavy. I like the Clippers. I like Utah. Portland, they've been close to getting to into the finals, but San Antonio is not really a threat. So we'll see what happens. But they're 1-4. They got Portland Friday night. I think that's a big game because Portland's only a half game behind them. So Portland with a win would surpass them and put the Lakers fourth in the Western Conference. I don't think that would worry LeBron when it comes to playoff time. I mean, they can make it up in the second half of the year. But also, there's no fans. So what does it really matter when it comes? There's no real home court advantage when it comes to, pro sports in the year 2020, 2021. Also a team that's hit the ditch, and they probably can't wait for the All-Star break because it's just been a mess for them. The Boston Celtics. The Celtics have dropped 7 of their last 8, and they lose to the Atlanta Hawks last night for the second time in a week. Atlanta, again, has been a major disappointment for me. They also got Trae Young. Gallinari went off last night off the bench for Atlanta. But the Celtics, with the loss, dropped to 9th in the Eastern Conference. They're a team that made the conference final last year. And you're just seeing the wheels fall off for them. They get blown out by Atlanta. And if you're a Celtics fan, you got to be worried. Brad Stevens has been there for a long time. I think he's a good coach, but I also think he's been propped up a little bit. He hasn't won anything since he come into the league. He's gotten to a conference final where he was a favorite going in last year playing Miami, and Miami beats them in 6 games, which really should have been 5. But the funny thing for me, and this is so ironic, that they're 9th in the East, and they got 2 All-Stars on their team in Tatum and Brown. I don't know how you have a sub 500 record and you're 9th, you're outside the playoffs, but you have 2 All-Stars named to the All-Star team. Again, the All-Star game is irrelevant to me. So that's maybe why they chose the Celtics players, because they're out of the playoffs, which is, irrelevance. But it's just funny to me how they decide these things. But they're a team. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? Yes. But if they played, what if they finished 7th or 8th and they played Brooklyn? They're not winning that series. If they play Brooklyn, they're going home. Then I think Brad Stevens, his job's got to be on the line for sure. I mean, it's pro sports. He's been there for a long time. Do I think he'd be rehired in a second? Yes, but with this nucleus, they've had Stevens forever. They've had Tatum. He's had Brown. They've had Marcus Smart. He's had these guys, and he hasn't been able to get them over the hump. And I don't know what the answer is in Boston, but their defensive play is not good enough. I think, like a lot of teams, they need an upgrade at center. They've had Daniel Tice for a long time. He's not a great defender, and he's not a great pick and roll player either. And that's kind of Tatum's specialty. Boston acquiring Blake Griffin would make a lot of sense to me because I think he can do those things. He can also add an outside shot, which wouldn't hurt the roster either. But playing better defensively, and we've seen they had a great start, and the Raptors had a terrible start. They've kind of done a 180, where the Raptors have lost 2 in a row, but they're sitting 5th in the East, and the Celtics are now 16-17, sub 500 record outside of the playoffs. So it'd be interesting to track to see what happens here, but I don't think you got the Miami Heat who beat Toronto last night. They've had COVID issues, a lot of different injuries. They're starting to come around. They're now 8th in the East. I think they'll get back into a playoff position. You got the likes of Charlotte, Chicago. They're teams that are kind of on the come up. You got Zach LaVine in Chicago is playing some great basketball. You got the Knicks who are right in the thick of things right now with Julius Randle being named to the All-Star team. And obviously some good things happening in Charlotte with Lonzo Ball. Sorry, with LaMelo Ball, who's playing really, really well. And they got contributors like Terry Rozier, Malik Monk, PJ Washington. They got a young team, but they play hard every night and they give you a run for your money every time you hit the court. So I think the Celtics kind of looked at this season like a cakewalk where we can finish 3rd in the East, we'll be fine. Then Tatum and Brown can kind of hit the second engine when you get to the playoffs. Well, hopefully this is a wake up call for them, because you lose to Atlanta twice in a week, you're not going to get a bigger wake up call than that. Atlanta has been, a pit of despair when it comes to winning in the NBA. So we'll see what happens with them. But and before I move to hockey, maybe Brooklyn, the Brooklyn Nets are must-watch TV. I realize there's a lot of sports going on right now, but if you can watch a Brooklyn Nets game, it's fun, because James Harden, to me, he's the MVP. I've had this conversation with Seamus a few weeks ago, but he's playing at such a high level. I think he might average 12 assists a game. That's unprecedented. He doesn't score as much as he used to because he doesn't have to. He's got Kevin Durant. He's got Kyrie Irving, riding shotgun with him, where he can feed them the ball. He's also, the other night, Bruce Brown, who's a reserve, who's a bench player, led their team in points against Sacramento. I mean, it's crazy what this team can do, and they're only starting to mesh, and they're playing not bad defense either. They beat the Lakers last week. It's been impressive to see what this team can do. I like, obviously, Kevin Durant's one of the best players in the world. I think when he's healthy, he's the best player in the world. I'd put him above LeBron James. But Harden, you could say, has been the best player in the NBA this year. I don't think that's a crazy argument to make. Just his scoring, his overall value to his team is through the roof. And yeah, he's been a revelation in Brooklyn. He obviously had to kind of get out of Houston, which is kind of ugly, where he was put on some weight and kind of quit, moped around. But he's where he wanted to be now, and it's hard to say that Brooklyn is not the favorite to win the NBA title. The Lakers will have time to get back together to get Anthony Davis healthy, but we'll see. It's a long season, but Brooklyn looks strong right now. And in the East, they really don't have a team that would scare you. I think Philly's a good team, but again, they're not really playoff proven. They haven't gotten to a conference final yet with the nucleus of Embiid and Simmons. Milwaukee has been really inconsistent all year. Also, they're a team that gets to the playoffs every year, but can't get over that hump with Giannis. Middleton and co being the nucleus of the team. Again, the Celtics, they had their best chance of making the finals last year. They lose to the Heat, and this year it's been a flat out disaster. The Raptors are a good team. I don't see them as a team that they wouldn't even put a dent in the Brooklyn Nets. I think that would be a 4 or 5 game series where, they're erased pretty quickly if if Brooklyn's all healthy. The Raptors don't stand a chance in that series. So again, so maybe some teams will make some additions because they see that, this three-headed juggernaut is only getting better. And if we stay the same, there's no way in hell we're going to beat them. But it'll be interesting to watch all year to see what happens. Obviously, there's going to be some interesting races. You got the Mavericks, who started off slow in the West. They're starting to find their game. Can they get into the playoffs? How will the Celtics rebound from this? Can, a team like Charlotte make the playoffs? That would be a huge story. LaMelo Ball, will he win Rookie of the Year? So some things to keep your eye on around the league. Raptors losing Tuesday night to the 76ers. They lost last night to Miami. They're back on the court Friday against the Houston Rockets. So a lot happening in the NBA. Like I said, we'll get more and more into it. This week has been hockey heavy, just with some different topics and conversations. But we'll get more into the NBA as we keep going here onto the point. So yeah, I'm going to pivot to talk about Montreal briefly. But before I do that, and them firing Claude Julien, I got to talk about video replay. And for everybody, sorry for people that listen to this often, but I'm not a person that really gets angry. I'm not an emotional guy. I've been referred to as the human cyborg before, which I take as a badge of honor. And I don't really get angry. I might get irritated every now and then, but I never get excited. Like, I've maybe been excited twice in my life. But video replay fucking pisses me off. So just set the scene for you. I'm sitting in my apartment, watching the game. My dog's sleeping on her bed. Everything's fine. I got no sound on, of course, just listening to, I think, Leonard Skinner's song at about, 10:30 at night, Tuesday. And then I'm flicking between some great games. You got Columbus, Chicago, which is down to the wire. You got Washington and Pittsburgh's going into overtime. Then I'm trying to catch the Montreal-Ottawa game. I'm thinking, okay, let's go into overtime. I'm going to put 3 screens on, see what I can do. But then Gallagher scores 2.1 seconds left. I'm like, oh, the game's over. Montreal's getting the 2 points. No, coach's challenge. So here's the play. I'll describe it. Gallagher goes to the front of the net. Does he bump Matt Murray by his own measure? Yes, that's absolutely true. However, Matt Murray has 8 seconds to recover and get in position. Gallagher resets. Murray is reset. He's in a position to make a save. Gallagher tips the puck over his glove into the net, 2.1 seconds. Game's over. There's not enough time. But coach's challenge. Okay. I hate it. It's in the game. But if officials are so fucking incompetent that they can't make a decision, that's fine. Let's send it up to Toronto and see what these fucking morons can come up with. So I'm sitting there, obviously pissed off because I'm flicking between screens, and it's and it's just, it doesn't even make you want to watch the game. Like, if you were a fan of these teams, you're sitting there watching these fucking goons in the Zebras on their little phone call up to headquarters. It makes you want to turn off the fucking TV, because I came here to watch hockey, not these fucking morons talk about if it's a goal or not. But whatever, I'm flipping through. I see Kapanen score a goal, and then the Chicago game was going to the gimmick. So obviously I flipped that channel, never went back. And it's no goal. And I don't know what a goal is anymore. It was kind of like the NFL with a catch. How is that not a goal? Goalies, I get it. They're coddled. They're like quarterbacks. They're wrapped up in these tight little blankets where if you breathe on them, you blow the whistle. Well, in this scenario, I don't know what the fuck happened, because Matt Murray had time to reset. He was in a position to make a save, and then it's no goal. The Montreal Canadiens got jobbed out of 2 points. They lose in the gimmick. But this is a bigger problem. If you're going to do the stupid coaches challenge, which I hate anyway, at least get the call right. You waste all the time of fans and just people that like watching hockey games with this stupid video replay. You take 5 minutes out of my night where I could have went to bed, but no, we got to sit here and muddle through if this is a goal or not. And it irritates me to no end. Okay, I'm going to sit here and wait. Okay, I'll sit through that, whatever. Get the fucking call right. Please. That's all I ask. It's going to be in the game because you need technology. You need all this bullshit. And you got two refs and 2 linesmen on the ice. But I guess the 4 of them are so incompetent that they can't make a call. They call a goal on the ice. Get the call right, please. Please. That's all. Brendan Gallagher, he got mad after the game. I would have fucking lost it after the game. If I was him, how pristine are these goaltenders? You can't give them a little bit of a bump? Or, okay, here's the biggest facade in this thing. They call goal interference, so it's no goal. How's it not a penalty then? So he was interfered with, right? And there is a penalty in the game called goal interference. All these goals that are called back, how are they not penalties? By definition, they should be. If the goal comes back, the goalie was interfered with on this play. No goal. He should be in the sin bin. That's how it should work. Because I don't see how. If there's no goal if there's goal interference on the play and it's no goal, go to the box, right? But now it was goal interference, no goal. Well, how is it not a penalty then? How is that not a penalty? I don't understand. I don't see the connection. And it's baffling to me that the NHL, they just had that black mark when it comes to the outdoor game. And then this shit this week with some of the reviews. And I said on Facebook last night in the Toronto game where Nylander scored, if I was Jeff Ward, I'm challenging that. Because if Gallagher's goal didn't count, how the hell does this one count? How the hell does this goal count? That one last night. What's the difference? He has Hyman sitting on his lap, but he doesn't challenge. It's crazy to me what they're doing. Should that goal in Toronto last night counted? Yes. But you go to that, I'm just thinking from a coach, and you're probably Glo Julian, who got fired, is posting at home saying, Jeff Ward, challenge it because it's going to go your way. Well, maybe not. It's Toronto. But headquarters is in Toronto, if you guys didn't know that. But it's baffling to me that 4 refs, maybe you need to hire new refs, because if they're not competent enough to make a call on the ice, it's called human error. It's going to happen. People in jobs make mistakes all the time, and you need it in sports. It can't just all be fucking technology, because there's still a guy upstairs looking at the technology telling the ref it's no goal. What makes him qualified to make that decision? The ref is a ref. He's been trained to be an official. Let him make the decision. But no, the NHL, I don't know how this just gets swept under the rug as a non-issue in the game when it's one of their bigger issues. It's how bad video replay is and how often they get the call wrong. And anybody who thought that was a goal last night, I think needs to get their head checked. But it's my rant of the week just about video replay. Montreal, after the game or yesterday morning, they fired Claude Julien and associate coach Kirk Muller. It didn't come as a huge surprise to me. I got, people reached out to me and I wasn't shocked. And there's a number of reasons for that. The team's been hit. They had a great start. They hit the skids a little bit. They haven't been scoring goals. You got, you look at Kotkaniemi, 2 goals, Suzuki, 4, and then you got Danault, 0. I mean, that's their top 3 centers. That's gonna be hard to win games. When Jet Petrie's points have kind of dried up. My boy Josh Anderson's still playing great. Drouin has been what he's been in Montreal since he got there. Inconsistent and unaware. But Shea Weber came out after Sunday's game and kind of said it's getting stale in here. He voiced, without saying it, he was kind of telling Bergie, we want a new voice. We're sick of Claude. We kind of want to play a more open game. Claude Julien is a defensive coach, and I think he's pretty set in his ways about how he does things, an old school coach. And I think Montreal kind of wanted to see what they could do, maybe opening the game up a little bit and playing a different style than what Claude is accustomed to or enjoys. So I don't know. Dominic Ducharme steps in. He was going to be the head coach eventually, of course, because he's French. It's I have again. I'm just going to say this, but I have no problem with a French any kind of coach, black, whatever, gay, getting an opportunity to coach a woman. That's the best thing for the game, because if you're the most qualified and the best candidate should get the job, no matter what you are. But the fact that Montreal just has to hire French coaches is really baffling to me. That you have to speak to the media in French. I just don't understand that logic. Maybe the guy isn't the right person for the job, but he's French speaking, so you have to hire him. Again, we've seen French coaches get hired. Alain Vigneault is French. He's coached in New York, Vancouver, Philly. So it's not about me saying, okay, French people should not get head coaching jobs. That's not the point here. The fact that Montreal has to hire a French speaking coach. Well, what if I see their candidate, some media guys sent out candidates for their next potential head coach. Number 2 is Michel Therrien. You hire Michel Therrien again, you go through that whole system just because he's French? No, he's a terrible coach. You don't hire him. But we'll see what happens with Dominic Ducharme. I think he was great in Halifax, obviously. He coached Durant, so maybe he can get Durant to play a different style, give him more opportunities, get some more points out of him. He coached at the World Juniors. He's coached at all the high levels. But I still think this team has the potential to be a really good playoff team and be a tough out in the Canadian division. Their defensive play needs to improve, but again, I think that can happen. But you need guys like Suzuki needs to be better than 4 goals. I think he's the future of their franchise, but you need to see more from him. Kotkaniemi, really inconsistent. He's been like Durant throughout his career where he just hasn't had it. Danault turned down 6 years times $5 million. That's reported by Montreal. He must be crying, and he's probably going to be firing his agent if his agent said, yeah, no, don't take it. We'll get more in the open market. Fat chance with no goals and really being an ineffective forward. So, but the big thing for Montreal, if they do hit the ditch and say Calgary can get back in it and pass them in the standings, I think Marc Bergevin is fired at the end of the year, point blank. He's been through enough coaches. He's been through enough of these transitions where he's tried to get the team better. And, if they miss the playoffs and they're not competitive, I don't know how many bullets he's got left in the chamber to play here. He's fired coaches. He's moved out players. It might be time for Jeff Molson to say, Mark, I really like you, but we're in a transition phase here, and you're not the guy to lead our team into the future. So we'll see what happens with Montreal. I mean, they got Winnipeg tonight. They're in Winnipeg tonight and Saturday, so that's not an easy schedule. And, a huge reason for Claude Julien losing his job, in my opinion, is Carey Price. He's been pretty terrible this year. Tuesday night against Ottawa, that second Brady Tkachuk goal can't go in. I mean, that's just a muffin. I mean, you got to cover that up. It's Carey Price. We're talking about 2 of the best goalies in the world in Carey Price, Carter Hart, both playing like they haven't put on pads before in parts of this season. And Price, I think this is a big night for him. Come up with a statement, new coach. I'm going to have my eyes on that game just to see what the team comes out with, what kind of differences I see systematically. So a tough matchup. You got Winnipeg with Dubois coming into the lineup, playing with Scheifele and Wheeler the other night. I'd like to see if they continue with that or if they put him at center. But a tough team to start out with. But for Montreal, you're in a playoff spot by a little bit right now. You need to find your game before too long because you got Calgary, who didn't play well last night. I mean, Calgary got a point against Toronto, but it's only because, Dave Riddick played out of his mind. And that rarely happens for him, but he played great. So, that'll be an interesting game tonight. Montreal, Winnipeg. And again, they play again Saturday. So two tough matchups for Montreal to start Dominic Ducharme's head coaching reign. Another little small story before we wrap up today. The LA Kings have beaten St. Louis in back-to-back games. We've seen really solid goaltending from Calvin Peterson last night. Dustin Brown's got 17 points in 18 games, which is highly impressive for him. Drew Doughty's logging a lot of minutes. They got a team full of it's veterans and then really young guys. There's really no middle ground. But do I think they're going to tail off? Yes, but at this point of the year, for them to be where they are in a playoffs position, it's really impressive. They play really hard. They got Sean Walker on the back end, who's really looking like a good prospect. Mikey Anderson's finally getting his chance to play. I like to see that. So good on LA. They could be Anaheim right now, or Anaheim's last two games they played, they've had 3-0 leads and coughed them up both times. So they're competitive. I mean, beating St. Louis twice in a row is no small feat. I believe they got Minnesota at the end of the week. Minnesota's another team right now that's playing well. They beat Colorado last night 6-2. The line of Zuccarello and Foligno and Kaprizov has really been a great one for them. And for Colorado, they kind of got to find their game here. They beat Vegas in the outdoor game, but then they lost to Vegas, losing to Minnesota last night, and they're outside the playoffs right now. So a lot happening with COVID and that. Vegas and San Jose has already been postponed tonight because of Sharks players. I think Thomas Hertl got put on the COVID list. So we'll see what happens with cancellations and things like that. But a lot happening in the NHL. Philly winning last night over the Rangers, and we also saw, like I said, Arizona coming back to beat Anaheim after being down 3-0. Toronto beating Calgary 2-1 in overtime with 2 goals from Bill Nylander. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow morning. Talk about some games tonight, some other things in the world of sports. Update you on what's happening at the WGC, and a lot of different stories that come up throughout the day. But no, I appreciate everybody who went on Instagram and kind of gave feedback to the different questions that I had about the content moving forward. Again, I'm going to try to, me and Seamus will be back to talking about TV next week. I'm going to try to incorporate some baseball, still get some guests on. This weekend, we might have a special podcast this weekend. Look out for that on Sunday. I won't give all the details right now, but it should be a lot of fun. We'll be discussing the Olympics. So that's another fun pod on the way that I'll tease as the week keeps going. So everybody have a great week. Enjoy the snow, and we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow morning. So we'll talk soon.